Councilman Swanson, are you lonely down there?
I am.
I'm so sorry.
That's
Okay, just want to make sure.
in the corner in the principal's office. That's where I always am.
I understand that fully.
I know, I usually see you down there.
Is that Blake not on mute?
It's got a feedback loop.
Maybe Blake could mute himself. if he isn't. Or you can mute him. You ready? After our technical difficulties, we'll get started. Appreciate all those in attendance this evening for our city council meeting, October 26th of 2021. And we do have joining us on Zoom tonight is Council Member Severing. Council Member Barker is excused this evening. Also, John Call, our city manager and attorney, is in some training today, so he's not here in person with us. So Susan is running the meeting tonight. We're grateful that she was able to be with us. We'll start our meeting tonight asking Council Member Ekstrom if she would like to give us an invocation and a thought and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance thereafter. So it's your call.
I was going to do a meditation and I didn't quite get it finished, so I'll do an invocation.
All right.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so very grateful to be gathered together as residents and leadership of this beautiful community. We're so grateful for the opportunity that we have to live here amongst the mountains. We're grateful for the natural beauty that surrounds us, and most important, we are very grateful for one another, for the wonderful spirit of friendship and concern that we have for one another. We're grateful for all those who are willing to serve. We ask that thy spirit will attend this meeting. Please bless that we may be inspired and be guided and directed to the ideas and policies that will help benefit our community the most. And please bless us with thy hand and thy watchful eye. We're again so grateful for all that thou hast given us. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Ekstrom. Appreciate that. We'll start our meeting tonight with a presentation by Sarah Lansing, and there's Alan there. So we'll turn some time to you for your presentation. If you just step over here to the microphone so we can hear you. Just give us your name and if you're resident.
All right, Alan Lunt, give my address too. Same. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I guess most of you know who I am, but I wanted to introduce myself tonight as currently serving as the chairman of the North Ogden Parks and Trails Committee, as well as being on the Planning Commission. And we wanted to take a few minutes tonight, which we really appreciate you giving us the time, to let you know a little bit about what we're doing as a committee right now and kind of what some of our goals are. And then also Sarah will be here to present a current project that we're working on. During COVID, our committee was pretty much shut down, as most things were. And this spring we've come back together and we've been working to rebuild because we lost a number of members. And in the process of rebuilding, we've also been working to put together a more precise mission and kind of vision for our committee and what we want to get done. Because I've been on it, I think, for about 5 years now. And since that time, We've had a lot of meetings and haven't actually really accomplished a whole lot. We've done some good events and had a few good things that have happened, but we feel like we can do more as a group. And some of the things that we think we could do better and work on is working directly with the citizens of North Ogden to determine what people really want to see and experience in our parks and on our trail systems. Because we feel like after meeting with the Parks and Recreation Group and with Tiffany, it sounds like there's going to be a pretty significant need for additional parks and space within the city as we continue to grow, especially at the rate we've been growing. As we've come back together and as we've been able to recruit a few additional members, we've come to realize we've got a pretty broad range of skill sets in our group, and we think we can be helpful with working directly with Tiffany, making presentations to you as a council. And some of those things that we're looking to do, more specifically what we'll be presenting tonight, is a survey that we're working on, but we've also in the past and feel like moving forward, we can work to organize some service projects in the parks and on the trails, get some community involvement that will help people become more involved and more invested in the things that we're doing. We can assist in some grant applications, we feel like, with Tiffany to help with some of the funding and help determine some of the costs and budgeting needs for what some of the future needs are. But with that, I wanted to give most of my time to Sarah so that she can present what we're working on right now, because we feel like that's the most important thing that we've got going at the moment. And let's go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this week's council meeting. My name is Sarah Lansing. I'm a member of the North Ogden Parks and Trails Group Committee. As Ellen stated, the North Ogden Parks and Trails Group was started. We started a new project, and we wanted the council and the public to know about it. We'd love your support in getting out the word on our survey. So in the month of October, November, members of our group will be facilitating a survey that asks questions about North Ogden Parks and Trails. The survey and all the questions have been reviewed by the Parks Director, Tiffany Stelling, and we have the Parks support in the survey, but since we're not a city entity committee, the survey is labeled that we are conducting this and not North Ogden City. I'll make that clear. So we have supplied the council with a copy of the paper survey with the 6 questions that we're asking, and a flyer that advertises the survey as well as gives the web address and a QR code for the online survey. Both surveys have exactly the same questions, so it doesn't matter which survey the residents take. The purpose of the survey is to gather information about what the residents of North Ogden want in future parks, what they like about the current parks, and what improvements we can make to existing parks. There's also a place at the bottom where they can leave any comments regarding parks and trails that they'd like the city council or the parks department to see. So what do we do? What do we plan to do with the results? We have 2 main goals. We're going to share the data, all the data we collect with the city council and the North Ogden Parks Department to let people know what they think. In the month of December, I will be compiling the data. And in January 2022, that means next year, I'll present the findings to the city council at the meeting then. The Parks Department will also have a copy of all the feedback that we received. And the public can look at it or request it in the office at the Parks Department. We also plan to use this information to determine future projects to benefit the North Ogden City. This could be in the form of fundraising for a specific feature that many people stated they wanted, fixing and improving an element in a park as a group, or creating community projects, like Ellen said, to create opportunities for residents to come together and help the city. If people want to, there are many ways that people can participate. There are already copies of the flyer of the online survey and paper surveys available for the public at the Parks and Recreation Building where the Parks Department is located. There's a drop box inside that anyone can turn in the paper surveys. And on the bottom of each paper survey is the address of the Parks Department. So they can also mail in any of their surveys if they choose to. So they don't have to go anywhere. We would like your permission for copies of the survey to be available at the city offices. We'll supply the copies and print more as needed for simplicity. At the end of the presentation, I'll recap the 4 requests that we would like either yes or a no on for the council to approve or not. So members of the group will also be posting a link to the online survey on social media, places like all the unofficial North Ogden Facebook groups, other places like that. We would like the council's approval to post a link to the at the official North Ogden Facebook page, as well as the city website, so that anyone that doesn't use social media can also participate if they choose. Participating group members will also be handing out flyers and paper surveys by hand. I've reached out to the North Ogden Senior Center and the lodge to find out ways that we can get their involvement. And we're still waiting on them to return my calls. So flyers will also be placed, excuse me, at the community bulletin boards for the online survey at places like Lee's and the public library, things like that, coffee shops. With your permission, we would like the opportunity to post the flyer at each park or playground or on the wooden signs created by the Boy Scouts. Because this may conflict with the city park regulations, we would like to request a one-time permission to post the flyers at the parks just for the month of October and November. So our goal for the project is to obtain at least 150 surveys from North Ogden residents from a variety of different demographic groups, not included to families with children, senior citizens, residents without children, residents that do not have private yards, and also children that are under 18. We hope to get enough information that represents the entire community of North Ogden, and not just those that are currently involved in the decision-making for the future of parks and trails. So, and with this, we'd like your help. If each participating member is trying to get at least 20 surveys, we ask that the council, if they can, to hand out 10 surveys each, or ask 10 people if they can participate in this for the benefit of the city. So that's pretty much it. To recap, we have 4 requests that we're asking of the council. Number 1 is we're asking permission for copies of the paper survey and the flyer to be available at the city offices for the public to pick up. Is that something that would be okay to do? Yes?
Yeah, we take things like that.
Okay.
Don't see any objections.
Okay. We're requesting a clickable link on the official, just to post something on the official Facebook group of North Ogden. Not exactly sure which one that is.
Yeah, actually, we're going to be changing that just a little bit of information to come. We're going to be calling that One North Ogden, and we'll change the name of the pages. I think the only thing I would recommend, Sarah, and you pointed this out, since you're not an official committee of North Ogden City, I think it's important as you put that on the Facebook page and the city page that you acknowledge this is a citizen group that is trying to gather information to give feedback to the council.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and on the survey that you have up there, it does say it's conducted by the North Ogden Parks and Trails. That was the approved name that Tiffany had come up with.
Yeah, anytime you use the name North Ogden Parks and Trails, they're going to think that is a North Ogden committee. So if you could just put a little disclaimer on there, just
Or would you
so.
like, would you like a community group or something like that? That would,
Whatever distinguishes it
okay,
would be fine.
we can do that. Would it be also permissible to add a link on the city website? Okay, great. We're asking permission to post the online surveys at the park. Does anyone have any objections? I know there was some concern about like that postings weren't allowed to be at parks or they would be removed.
Oh, I post things now on them.
Yeah, I think so. Do we have council member Severin too, just to
Yeah,
make sure he doesn't have any objections?
get back over and I can see if Tiffany-
Well, we're seeing if Tiffany's here. I did have a chance to review the survey.
Okay.
I think there's one very important question missing on the survey. Because as I read that, we could get some really good feedback on, having parks like South Ogden
Mhm.
or whatever, which they just bonded, I think, $6 million on their most recent park. I think there needs to be a question on here. I think we're all aware of where we're at in our parks impact fee situation. I would like a question on there that says, are you willing to pay additional taxes to fund these recommendations? Because it's really easy to put down, great things that we want, but we have to figure out how we're going to pay for it.
Okay.
So I don't know, any objections to that?
I can bring that to the group, and then I'll get back to you with the note.
Yeah, I think we need to know as citizens what, if they're willing to, pay for the things they're suggesting.
Okay.
Because it's, I don't know, Councilman Swanson, you're over finances. Have you seen a lot of money laying around lately?
I did find a dime earlier today.
Did you put it back in the right coffers?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I have just one question or thought on that, being that with the conversation we just had about not being in a city committee, putting a question like that, does that make it sound more like we're asking for the city or as a city committee?
I think we have a disclaimer on there up front. But, as I read through that, there's some great feedback we can get. But the bottom line is how do we implement I've always felt that if you're going to do a survey, you better be willing to act on the information you get back, as long as we feel it's statistically accurate. There's nothing more frustrating to get a survey and then see nothing happen. And I think we all recognize that parks are important in our city. And that as we grow, we're going to have more parks and actually finish some of the parks we have, which I think as we see what the new council looks like, we'll talk about, what we need to do with some of the existing parks and the trails and things of that nature. But I don't know, I'll ask Councilman, we'll start down there with Councilman Rfps, see what she thinks.
Yeah, I love so many things about this. Number one, I love that it's resident driven, right? The more involved you can get residents, it's just having skin in the game. If somebody has put in at least even an idea, you're more likely to get them to show up at a fundraising event or at a service project, right? The other thing that I was thinking of is every place that I thought of to post, like that was the next thing you said. I was like, oh, and there, and she said them all. The only other place that I thought of was probably at a trailhead. I don't know if there's like someplace you could put, I'm thinking, we've got the major going up in the canyon pretty soon, and there are going to be a lot of people going up there. Hopefully we can catch a lot of residents, but if you could put the QR code just.
Yeah, they do have signs that the Boy Scouts put up at the
Mhm.
trailheads. And that was one of the places that we
Oh,
asked
perfect.
to post it.
Councilmember Ekstrom, specifically in regards to the question about how we're going to pay for these suggestions, what they're willing to do.
Oh, yeah.
You're in on that?
Well, again, the more even the more awareness that we have generated to the more people, the more they start to think about, oh yeah, how much it's going to cost. And then especially if we can get more people involved in the actual committee itself and seeing kind of like, okay, then they're starting to look at bids and how much things actually cost. A lot of times people will say, yeah, I want that, but they have no idea how much something costs. I mean, I was just in a meeting with Tiffany, we were talking about, well, what would it cost to put another Bowery at North Shore at the pool, right? $150,000. It's like, when you're building things, for an entity like a city, it has a completely different set of construction standards than, putting something in your backyard. So I think just this general awareness is just a really good thing. So yeah, I think if you can add that, just again, fundraising, I love that you're going to look for grants. And then if we want to finish parks, I think that's going to take, as you said, South Ogden is bonding, and right now we're not going to bond again. We've got the public safety, but is that something kind of people can get their heads wrapped around, that if we're investing in something that's going to be
a very long-term thing, that it's okay to bond, especially where rates are so low. Right now, it's almost like just a hedge against inflation, just to get the money now, so.
And I think later,
Mhm.
I'll share, and I've had a chance to talk about this with Councilman Swanson, who's over finance, as a way that we can start getting funds available to enhance our parks and finish our parks. We basically have commitments on 2 parks right now, right?
Mhm.
We have a commitment on a park out at Patriot Point, and we have a longstanding commitment for a park up on 2600, north of the current park. So, Councilmember Stoker, are you okay with that, having him add the question about financing?
Yeah.
Councilman Swanson?
Yeah.
How about Councilman Severing?
Yeah, I'm definitely okay with that, Mayor.
Okay, so I think if you could add that question and word it in a way that's appropriate, then I think we would approve the survey to go out. So,
Mayor,
Oh, that sounds like this.
Councilman Severing?
I was just thinking, I first off, let me express appreciation to Sarah and Alan and what their committee and what they're trying to accomplish. I truly believe we haven't harnessed yet the value of what a community can do if they get together, have a vision, and then move forward in confidence. But here's a thought. I know you're trying to find locations to get this survey out. Is it possible, Mayor and John and Susan, would it be possible to put kind of an abbreviated survey like this into the utility newsletter?
We could.
We've got Dave here
John just commented.
and John. John, you're with us. Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, we could include it in other newsletters.
Maybe even the connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, we want to have wrapped up by the end of November. So as long as there's at least a couple weeks for people to do that. then-
Yeah, the Connection magazine for November's probably gone to print. But just let me echo Councilmember Severing. We're very appreciative. We appreciate feedback and your efforts in doing this. So, okay, is that
That's it.
That's
any
it.
concerns?
We're good. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Appreciate your efforts there. All right, we'll go into our consent agenda now. Council members, you've had the packet. I think you've had a chance to review it. Does anyone have a conflict of interest with anything we're going to be discussing this evening? Councilman Severing, we can't see you, so do you have anything to disclose this evening?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I did not mute, but now I did. I do not have any conflicts.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go to item 3 on our consent agenda. This would be a discussion or action to consider the September 7th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. Any comments on the minutes, Council?
Just a couple of name misspellings. Ryan Speltz has Spelts is a Z, and Sandy Cochran's last name is spelled differently on 2 different places. So if you can tell us which one is correct and leave that to Susan.
Cochran.
No E on the end.
No E on the end. Okay, very good. Thank you. I like to spell things
Okay. Any other comments? If not, I would look for a motion to approve the City Council meeting minutes of September 7th.
right. So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Ekstrom. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Severing. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the September 7th City Council meetings, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 4, which is a discussion or action on conditional acceptance of the Cherry Spring Villa subdivision. Are you going to do, or is Dylan going to do that? Okay, Dylan. It's our Public Works Inspector. Thank you.
How are you guys tonight? My name is Dylan. I've been working for North Ogden for 7 years now. Recently became the Public Works Inspection Superintendent, and as part of that, going and checking out the subdivisions and making sure they're built to city code and standard. After walking through Cherry Springs Villa, I didn't see any outstanding issues and was asking for conditional acceptance to get them into the 1-year warranty before they're finalized.
Bill, just a question, as I've gone around the city, Dave knows this because I harp on it in council meetings all the time. We have a lot of non-compliant ADA ramps where they're not compliant with that the law. Are you looking particularly at those in the subdivision?
So on this subdivision, there's the trail that goes right across the canal that's on Pleasant View Drive. I actually took a picture of one of them because it looked different. There's like 4 or 5 approved ways to do those ADA ramps. And I texted to Lauren to make sure that it was one of the approved ones. So
Okay.
I do check them out, make
Good.
sure that they're not the different colored domes and stuff.
Because a little lip that big is really difficult for someone in a wheelchair. So it has to be that. So if you just pay particular attention to that, Dave knows it's an issue for me. So you're recommending approval.
Yes.
All right. Any questions for Dylan, council? All right. I don't see any questions. So I look for a motion to conditionally accept the Cherry Springs Villas subdivision. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mayor,
We have a motion by Council Member Swanson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Council Member Ekstrom. Any discussion? I see no discussion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Do we have anyone online this evening, by the way? Susan, any public? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dylan. Appreciate all you do for us. Have a great evening. We'll now enter into our active agenda. We'll now have time for public comments. Those of you who are here in person this evening, if you would just step over here to the microphone if you have comments. If you would state your name and if you're a resident of North Ogden, we would appreciate it. If you're online, if you would just raise your hand, Susan will watch for that and let us know if you have comments online. I'll just remind you, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If I interrupt you, please don't be offended. That'll just mean 3 minutes have passed. So we'll now have public comments.
Take my mask off so you can hear. James Evans, resident of North Ogden. My purpose here this evening is just to bring awareness. I'm sure many are aware of this. I am a part owner of North Ogden Animal Hospital. And I have a concern with the parking of semis on Washington Boulevard. This past weekend, there were 4, no less than 4, and they get pretty close to our driveway. Quite a few of our clientele are not young, this is the PC way to say that. And the speed limit on Washington Boulevard is 45 miles an hour, and not everybody obeys that speed limit. I just have a concern that with time, something bad's gonna happen there. Very, very difficult to pull out of our driveway when you have a semi to the south and immediately to the north. They're not right by our driveway. The ones this weekend, I would say the one to the north was about 40 or 50 feet, and the one to the south was probably 100 feet down. I understand this is a UDOT highway. UDOT is throwing a brick at a brick wall and trying to, I don't quite have this forum there, so I just wanted to bring it to this forum, make awareness. I'm just concerned about our liability. I'd like to remove some of that liability from my business. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, and we'll ask Chief Quinney if there's anything we can do on that particular road. And see if we can't help you out, because it is difficult. If they're 40 feet, it's still hard to see exiting the driveway. So thank you for joining us this evening, expressing your concern. Anyone else here this evening would like to make a comment? Do we have anyone
Yeah, I
online?
have one. It's Christina Watson.
Okay, Christina, if you would just tell us that you're a resident of North Ogden. We know your name, so go ahead.
Hi, thanks. This is Christina Watson. I'm 1820 North, 100 East. And I'm also on the Trails and Parks Committee. I really appreciate Sarah and Ellen and all that they said today, and that they're representing the committee there. And I love the idea of asking the public their opinions with the parks and trails. And I appreciate all the comments that were said from the council as well, and the ideas and the support. I just had one thought to add. I think that it's a great idea to add the line about funding at the bottom, because I think that definitely some people would be willing to raise taxes to be able to fund additional items at a park to make it bigger, grander, fancier, whatever. And I also think it would be a good idea as well to add, if anyone would be willing to be a sponsor for a certain item and have their name on a plaque or something. But I'm just concerned that the way that it was brought up for anyone who's listening or participating in this meeting, that we don't get the idea that to have a park funded at all, we'd have to raise taxes, because in our minds in the Parks and Trail Committee, we feel like that adding more parks is justified and rightly necessary in the city, and that something reasonable should be in the budget, and we should be able to fund and, updating our playgrounds, one playground every year, and those kind of things should be expected in my mind. And so I don't want us to get the misconception from that great idea, and I hope we do add that funding question, but I just don't want us to get the misconception that no matter what we pick, no matter how cheap of an option we go with, that we would need to increase taxes. If we wanted to have like a grander and greater, double the size or something, then sure, let's get fundraising and let's raise taxes, and let's see if the public is on board for that. But I just wanted to bring up that point, that there's that other side as well. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And just to clarify, I think we recognize that we have a need for parks. We have a need for additional parks as the city grows. And it's surely our intention to properly fund the Parks Department. But I think the public needs to understand that, those type of things that you mentioned with additional parks and perhaps expansion of parks, not maintenance and upkeep of parks, may involve potential tax increase. Not saying it's for sure, but I think we need to understand if they're willing to do that. And I think there are probably many in the community that are. So and getting feedback, we just want to make sure we get it all. So, and yeah, we're not against parks.
Thank you.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Susan? Anyone else here? Okay, we'll move on in our agenda then. We'll move on to item number 6. Scott's probably online with us, I'm assuming. Scott Hess, our planning director, will lead us in a discussion regarding an action to consider an ordinance on whether to permanently or temporarily close, or indefinitely close, I guess is the term that we use, a cul-de-sac located at 100 East, 1475 North. So Scott, if you're with us.
Can you hear me now? I switched over to a panelist.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. And as the Mayor said, I have before you for the Council tonight consideration on an ordinance for a legislative decision on an indefinite closure of a cul-de-sac, and this is in accordance with Utah Code 72-5-105. So if you notice the mailed notice and the city website notice, we began our notice process 4 weeks ago prior to the meeting tonight to meet state code requirements, and it's now up for your consideration. Utah State Code 72-5-105 controls highways, streets, or roads once established, and it states that those will continue until abandoned. And this is the temporary closure provision that we're working on tonight. So Spring Meadows subdivision is located in the southwest portion of North Ogden City. It received final plat approval from Planning Commission on December 7th, 2016. The subdivision includes 14 residential lots along 1500 North Street, as well as 2 parcels owned and maintained by the Homeowners Association. 2 open parcels include some wetland areas identified by the Army Corps of Engineers. And the subdivision also has a cul-de-sac bulb on the south property line, which is accessible not from North Ogden City directly, but rather from Harrisville City on 100 East Street. The North Ogden City began issuing building permits once the improvements on 1500 North Street were complete. This is a little different. Typically, we'd have all improvements in or a bonding for 100% of the improvements. During the development, Harrisville City and the developer have come to an agreement that that cul-de-sac bulb was not really necessary from a public safety standpoint, as 100 East and 1415 North Street in Harrisville operate as a hammerhead turnaround. And part of the reason that cul-de-sac was requested to be put in, originally, I believe Harrisville wanted it as maybe some additional parking for trailhead for an existing trail that they have in the city. And then also there's a manhole in that cul-de-sac that would need to be still have hard surface access to it, but this paving would have essentially allowed the city to go out and easily maintain that manhole, which right now is kind of on the outskirts of the designated wetland areas. The Harrisville City's noticed that this cross street, this kind of terminus of 100 East, is an area where garbage and debris and dumping is happening. And so they've asked the developer of the Spring Meadows subdivision to put up a gate. And the city has, North Ogden City doesn't really have an issue with that, so long as we can maintain our manhole cover in there and the trail in there and have access through that gate. But due to state code, prior to putting a gate across a public right of way, we need to have an ordinance from the city recommending this indefinite closure. And the indefinite closure doesn't mean permanent, it doesn't mean temporary, it's just essentially closed from the date of acceptance of the ordinance until such time in the future that we deem that cul-de-sac bulb is necessary, and we could unclose that road, we could construct the improvements in that. The general plan is really kind of silent on this particular issue. As far as conformance with the general plan, the first goal in the transportation section is to maintain and improve existing infrastructure. From staff's perspective, one additional cul-de-sac bulb is not really a burden on the city, but it is when you have to access, you can only access it through another city. So this leaves one cul-de-sac bulb kind of abandoned, only accessible from the south side, Harrisville City on 100 East Street. So future removal of snow, road improvements, really anything that we do in there, it's somewhat of a burden. And then also it's just really not necessary at this point for access, public safety, or transportation routes for either North Ogden City or Harrisville residents, as those 2 cross streets operate as a hammerhead turnaround for public safety and for all vehicles that access homes on the Harrisville side. For the summary of the land use authority considerations in state code, staff has determined that the closed highway, road, or street is not necessary for vehicular traffic. The closure of the highway is necessary. It is not necessary to correct or mitigate injury or private public land resources. And it's sort of necessary to mitigate unsafe conditions, more just this kind of dumping of debris and materials. So based on these requirements of state code, staff believes the city council can find the proposed indefinite cul-de-sac roadway closure to be in conformance with state code and the general plan for the city. And staff's recommendation is for the council to hold a public hearing discuss the closure, and act on the ordinance. And
Thank
that's
you,
all I have.
Scott.
Yes.
Any questions for Scott before we open public hearing, council? Councilmember Ekstrom, do you have a question?
I do. I'm just looking at the ordinance's wording and it has it listed as 1475 south. Do we need to fix that before we actually approve it? And then this is a
Yep.
really interesting road. I think there's some spots that are kind of like no man's land, I think out in the kind of this Harrisville, is it Weber County, is it? So my sister-in-law actually lives on 100 East in Harrisville, and so I had no idea it went down into North Ogden at the end of the street. So Scott, am I understanding correctly that in order, we've got a manhole down there that we actually have to go through Harrisville City to get to it? Is that what happens?
Yep, right now that there's a manhole that has sewer improvements that come through Spring Meadows from the detention basin to the north. It may be a storm sewer. I don't know, maybe Lauren or John could help me correct what specific type of manhole it is. But that's been in existence, I believe, since prior to that subdivision going in, and we've always accessed it down there. There's also a trail that connects 100 East up to 1500 North Street in the city that we would do snow maintenance on. I believe we have an agreement with the subdivider, the developer, on maintenance of that. But yep, you're right that you have to drive through Harrisville City to get access to that manhole today. And thank you for the catch in the ordinance. I had inadvertently swapped those address points. So it's 100 East and 14, approximately 1425 North.
Fix that right here too. It just needs to be north.
Yes. I think he said 1425 north.
Scott, 1425.
Yeah, he just said 1425, so I just want to clarify if it's 1475 or 1425.
Well, it's the actual road is 1415. So I've gotten this wrong on a number of levels, apparently. So, apologize.
1415.
It's 1415 north on the 100 East Street. Yeah.
Can you fix that?
It won't let me on here because I don't have the license, but I can fix it.
Okay. So council, do you understand it's 1415 north and 100 east, North Ogden. Councilman Swanson, did you have a question for Scott?
Yeah, when I went on Google Maps and was looking at this, the maps have it as 1475. I would suggest that we bring this back on the 9th when we have the addresses absolutely ironclad and correct.
Okay,
So Mayor, the addresses are not, I don't want to say an estimate, but it's 100 East that's the important part. And the cul-de-sac doesn't actually have an address. It's more of an estimated, because there is no property address for that cul-de-sac. It's a public right of way. So we put in it's really the 100 East that's the most important part of the ordinance, and the estimate on 1425 North, which would be north of 1415, but that's why it's written that way.
Okay.
so let me just clarify, John. So 1425 north is north of 1415 north. I just want to make sure that's the attorney's math there. Hello, John.
Commissioner Swanson's correct. I believe this plat actually has 1415 North Street on it incorrect, the Spring Meadows plat, because looking at the Weber County information, it is 1475 North. So I had transcribed from south to north in the ordinance, the number being accurate.
Okay, so what's the correct information we're going to be looking at? 100 east and 1475, approximately 1475 north?
Correct.
Yeah, let's put approximate. I guess that means within a block or two, but
1475.
okay. John says we can move forward with the ordinance based upon that information. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Hess while he's on the line? I see no further questions for him. So based upon the advice of our legal counsel, I will now open public hearing regarding this matter of a indefinite closure of the street at 100 East and approximately 1475 North. So public hearing is now open. Do we have any comments from the public? Susan, anyone online?
Looks like Christina Watson raised her hand again.
Okay, Christina, are you with us?
Hello, Christina Watson, 1820 North, 100 East. So yes, I live on 100 East, but in the North Ogden side, just north of this spot. And I go past this spot all the time. And I completely support the idea of putting a gate there. It's kind of an open, awkward spot there that looks like it's supposed to be a cul-de-sac. But I would say that I know a lot of people who travel from my neighborhood on that little path trail over to the park, because there's a trail from that dead end 100 to the left. It goes to Harrisville Park where the trail is. So anyway, people travel on the trail from the Spring Hills Meadows down past this dead end street and through the Harrisville line over to Harrisville Park. So I would just make a suggestion that when you put that gate there, that you have a small walkway for a human to walk through or a bike to get through, not cars, but just so that that trail remains usable, because I know it's used a lot around here.
Thank you, Christina. Any other comments from the public? I don't see any. So at this point in time, I would seek a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Ekstrom. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Swanson. Any further discussion? Closing the public hearing, seeing none. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I see none. The next item then, council would be to consider ordinance number 2021-36. This is in regards to a motion to approve the indefinite closure of 100 East and 1475 North as a cul-de-sac roadway in accordance with Utah Code 72-5-105. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'll move that we to approve ordinance 2021-36, indefinitely closing the cul-de-sac at roughly 100 East and 1475 North.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay, we'll let Councilmember Severin get in on the action. Any further discussion? I do have one question. What's the assurance that we can make sure we have a gate and access, that Harrisville can't cut us off from doing, not that they would, but just trying to assure that we do have a pretty high commitment that we can gate that off and have access.
Yeah, so they gave us, they'll let us put our own lock on it, because we're gonna be the only ones actually accessing it. We're the only ones that clean that manhole, so.
So we have a pretty high degree of assurance that we'll have a gate there. And
Yes.
all right. Councilmember Stoker.
So how about the suggestion of a gate or a walkway to use that trail so that's not completely shut off too?
Who would be responsible for that, Dave, of making sure the public has access and thoroughfare through the gate?
I can make sure that we do that when we put the gate in, that there's, a walkway access there to get onto the trail system.
Okay, does that satisfy your question, Councilmember Stoker?
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none then, I'll ask for a roll call vote on this. Councilmember Swanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Severin?
Yes.
Councilmember Stoker?
Yes.
Councilmember Ekstrom?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Move on now to item number 7. This is a discussion in regards to considering a resolution for an interlocal agreement with Harrisville City related to sewer service, and Dave Espinosa, our Public Works Director, will be presenting information on that.
Hello, council. So what this is down in, I have to get all these straight, Montgomery Farms, new subdivision. There's 8 homes there, that their sewer, or where their sewer will leave our city is lower than where our manholes are. And so what we have, we already have in place back in 2006, I believe, 5 or 6. We went into an agreement with Harrisville at the time, to take approximately 11 other homes sewer through their city. It all goes to the same place. It's all going to Central Weaver. So the only thing that we work out is how we get that cleaned. We actually have our own cleaning trucks, and so we're able to clean those manholes there. So all we're asking is to extend that agreement that we created back in 2006, right around there, yeah, 2006, to add 8 additional homes from this Montgomery subdivision.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Espinosa? I don't see any questions, Dave. Looks like you're off the hook.
Perfect.
All right. This is regarding resolution number 16-2021, an agreement A10-2021. So council, I'd be looking for a motion to approve that resolution and their local agreement. Harrisville City, I believe they've already signed, Dave.
Yep,
I have it.
Yeah, related to sewer service. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we accept agreement A10-2021 concerning an interlocal agreement with Harrisville City about the sewer cleanup.
How about resolution 16-2021? Do you want to include that in your motion also?
Sure, resolution, where did we get that one?
We have to pass it by resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, resolution 16, I don't know what I was writing down. Yes, resolution 16-2021.
Okay,
Wow.
all right.
Okay.
Do we have a second on Councilmember Ekstrom's motion?
I second that.
Have a second by Councilmember Stoker. This will require a roll call vote. Councilmember Ekstrom,
Yes.
Councilmember Stoker,
Yes.
Councilmember Swanson,
Yes.
and Councilmember Severing.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Move on to item number 8 on our agenda this evening. This is a budget amendment regarding ordinance 2021-33. This was passed at our last meeting on October 12th of 2021. However, we didn't have an accurate ordinance in front of us at the time. There were some errors in it. So this is mostly a corrective action, but Susan, do you want to go ahead?
Right screen. As the mayor stated, this is a cleanup item. We didn't have this ordinance before when you passed it. The numbers were correct in Jamie Jones, the finance director's staff report. So essentially what we're doing, we've already given it an ordinance number last week, or the 12th when we passed it. So this is just to formally say that you've seen the ordinance and that you're approving it. We're going to keep the same ordinance. We're just going to do it like a formal one, just so that you have it in front of you.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions of Susan regarding this item on our agenda? All right, if not, I would be looking for a motion to approve this ordinance 2021-33 as amended by the information.
Mayor,
Having the ordinance in front of us this evening.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Swanson.
Oh, sorry, actually, he's trying to talk here, sorry.
Councilmember Severing, did you want to second that motion?
yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second by Councilmember Severing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, then we'll do a roll call vote on this. Councilmember Severing,
Yes.
Councilmember Stoker,
Yes.
Councilmember Swanson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ekstrom.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We'll now enter to the next item on our agenda. We'll have council member reports. We'll start with council member Stoker and have her update us on her assignment in regards to the police department. We'll then move to council member Ekstrom, who will give us any needed information on Parks and Recreation. And then we'll have council member Swanson talk to us about the financial situation, give us a little update on the situation in the city. So Councilmember Stoker, do you have anything you'd like to report this evening?
Thanks, Mayor. Yes. Our community service officer, Sarah May, she is making the transition to becoming a police officer. So she will start the academy next month. So excited for her and that she will be a great
Asset.
Thank you to the
No
department.
problem.
That too. And so the speed trailer is still out of commission, but they're working on getting a grant to get it replaced. So they will know in a few months whether we've got that grant or not. And also, I think soon the sign will be coming back up, coming down Washington, because right now with the speed saying how fast you should be going, it's not there, and it rivals Mountain Road as a speedway, just saying. And then also, please remember, it's Halloween. It's gonna be Halloween weekend and the kids will be out. It's getting dark earlier. And so just be really careful and please, parents, make sure that your kids have some reflective gear on. I mean, they may see the cars, but the cars don't see you. And I learned a long time ago, you need to make a lot of eye noise when it's dark. So just be mindful of that. And also to remind you that if you get unsolicited emails, phone calls, or texts asking for personal information or credit card information, or to purchase gift cards for whatever they're trying to scam you on, that they are scams, and don't reply. The mayor texted me once and wanted to know if I could get 5 gift cards for him for $100 each.
But it wasn't the real mayor, was it?
So please beware.
Can I add a little color to your report? And maybe you could chime in. The Public Works Committee, Public Safety Building Committee will be meeting tomorrow. We have received back some proposals on our inquiries about those interested in building the facility. The committee will be looking through those tomorrow evening. And then we'll be moving forward from that point in time. Anything else you'd like to add about the Public Safety Committee?
Just that we're excited, the proposals that come in and to work through it and to start moving forward with it. So it'll be good.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ekstrom, do you have something to report on the Parks and Recreation Department?
Absolutely. Okay, so we have the citywide trunk or treat, the Fright Night they're calling it, on this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And registration is available on the city's website through the Parks and Rec Department registration link. We have basketball being registered for it, and it closes on the 31st. So if you've got kids that want to sign up for basketball, get that done right away. And we were privileged to see, Tiffany sent us some photos of McGriff Park's playground, which is really cool. It's a pirate theme, and it's coming along really nicely. Of course, it takes a little bit longer with the staff that we have to get it in, but they're doing a really good job, and that's really going to be fun. So that's it for Parks and Rec.
All right, thank you. I did have a chance to meet with Tiffany and Nick yesterday and today, and we had some nice discussions. We've got the involvement now from the co-chairs of the Arts Guild to help with some grant applications, potential grant applications. And we challenged them to come up with 3 new incremental things in the city regards to arts and recreation. So any citizens who have ideas you'd like to share with them, That's Jamie Rasmussen and Todd Harris. And I'm sure if you call the city offices, we can get you their contact information. So some exciting things, I think, happening there. All right, thank you. Council Member Swanson, what would you like to tell us about finances this evening?
They're wonderful.
Wonderful.
Susan, did,
I have James' report. Is that what you want?
yeah, I'd like to have just the sales tax collections fiscal year 2022. Excuse me. So if you look here, the green line with the triangles is our budgeted, what we expected and budgeted for from a sales tax revenue standpoint. You can see that the month of July started about 10%. What was it, 3%? I've got new glasses coming. It's gonna be about 3% higher. I honestly thought that that was a harbinger of the slowdown that we all expect at some point. And then August sales tax numbers came in. Can you scroll back up just a little bit for me, Susan? Came in at 29% over what we got last year, and significantly above what we had budgeted. So sales tax trends continue to baffle the best of economists, and those of us that aren't economists or CPAs are exceptionally baffled by why sales tax revenue continues to grow. Given that ARPA payments have ceased, people are not working, not going back to, so I can't figure it out, but it's great for the city coffers that revenue continues. We'll continue to keep a close eye on it. From a revenue versus expenditure, we are 25% of the way through the fiscal year. Our revenue is at 24.1%. Bear in mind that is without, if you can go back to right there, thank you. That is without, before we get September sales tax. So our revenue is basically right where we would want it to be budget-wise, and we still have a whole nother month's worth of sales tax revenue to be reported to us that should be coming in any day. So from a revenue standpoint, we're doing exceptionally well. From an expenditure standpoint, again, remembering that we're 25% of the way through the year, overall departmental expenditures are at 18.6%. So we're 6.4% roughly below budget on expenditures year to date, which again is awesome. Great for the city, great for the residents, and just my hats off to the departments for the tight ship that they always run and the work that they're doing. Any questions, Councilman? Mayor, any questions?
No, but
That I can answer,
No, but I do have a comment I'll make here on item number 11 regarding your report. So, okay. I'll move on to any additional public comments. If you have any comments you'd like to make regarding action items of this evening or anything else, please step up to the microphone. And if you would watch Susan for those who are online.
Steph Casey, North Ogden. I just heard you mention that tomorrow night you're going over the public safety RFPs. Is that a public, can the public attend that?
It is not, there will not be a quorum of the committee there, and this
Okay.
is confidential information regarding the proposals and numbers that are in those. So as soon as we get through that, you can see why we would be doing that, because
Yeah, I'm just
we've got,
wondering and checking, getting my
Yeah.
schedule
no,
together.
but we will
'cause-
be totally transparent once we get through that. It's just a little bit difficult right now because we've got to compare the numbers. So we don't want to have one contractor
Gotcha.
knowing what the other one is bid, vice versa. So this does not constitute a quorum. There'll be no decisions made. It'll just be going through the proposals to do comparisons. The next meeting, I believe, is the following, is it Wednesday or Tuesday? Where we'll be scoring the different proposals And then the committee will be bringing a recommendation to the council. So
Great,
thank you for the question.
thank you.
Be like the 10th. Yeah.
The 10th is that meeting. But there's been a selected number of members from that committee on the recommendation, and it doesn't entail a quorum. But anytime, obviously, the full quorum meets, we'll have open meetings. So. Not seeing anyone online. Any further comments from the public this evening? All right, we'll move on to item number 11. Council, do you have any comments from residents that we need to share to update them on, or any comments you'd like to make? Yeah, we'll move on to staff here in a minute. Any comments from you, Council Member Severing?
Nope, no comments. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. The mayor does have one brief item I'd just like the council to be thinking about as a potential proposal. As Council Member Swanson indicated, our sales tax is coming in over budget. I think about $93,000 over budget in the first 2 months of the year. We don't know if that will continue or not continue. I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but I found oftentimes that government is good at spending money once it's found. And I think our city's done, I think, well, I want to point that out under the direction of Councilmember Swanson. We're conservative and we understand the fiduciary responsibility you have with taxpayers' dollars. I would like the council to think about something along the following lines. That we set the threshold going forward. We have already set the threshold this year in the budget. And maybe we get a standard that we're willing to live with. Anything over and above that would be set aside in the capital projects fund, specifically for two things. For parks, future park needs, and also perhaps a capital improvements fund that we would set a percentage of that amount aside to maintain our facilities. Particularly with the new public safety building, some of our other buildings are getting a little bit aged, and want to make sure we're maintaining those. So I would like to propose that you think about that anything collected over our baseline in sales tax is assigned for those purposes, so that we know we have to live within the budgeted amount that we've set. So I think that it's time that we start setting aside some funds, particularly for Barker Park. I don't think we're going to be able to do that all at one time. We know it's a big bill, but if we phase that in, I think there's some things we can begin to accomplish in that regard. So just something I'd like you to think about, that we assign those excess funds for a specific purpose. Okay. All right. It's pretty much what I wanted to discuss. And just to remind you too, we need to have a discussion about the funds we've received from the government in regards to the projects we're going to allocate those to. And also there's additional funds becoming available from the state that we're going to apply for some projects, infrastructure projects in the city. Dave will be bringing those to us so that we can make proper application for those. So, okay. All right. Staff comments.
So John has stepped away at his training again. So I just wanted to, he wanted me to make sure I told you all that the bathrooms are closed at the park. It's that time of year where they are closed. And then just to give you kind of a timeline on our city council meetings, we will not have one on November 2nd because of the election. We will have our normal one on the 9th. And then we will have to add a special meeting on the 16th so that we can legally canvass the election. And then the 23rd again. So we'll still have the 3 meetings, it'll just be the special one on the 16th that will need to be added. And then on December 7th, it is our city Christmas party, so we will not have a meeting that night, but plan on attending. And then there will not be EDC this month because of the conflict with the special meeting being added, nor a general plan committee meeting held this month. So,
Okay.
an idea of the next little while.
All right, anything else? So, Councilmember Stoker, Mayor will be out of town on the 16th, so if you're prepared to conduct a meeting that evening, that would be good.
You did that on purpose.
Well, you decided not to run again, and I think at some point during your tenure, you should have that opportunity to conduct a city council meeting, so
That's okay.
I'll make sure I'm out of town on that night, okay?
Cheryl's the election canvas before, so she's a pro.
She'll do that. Anything else, Susan? All right, we'd now be looking for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Stoker. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
All right, non-debatable motion, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your attendance this evening.